This is a quick video asking for assistance or information from anyone that's ever seen or used one of these. It's Zip30 Teletype. It's a machine I picked up about a year ago. It was in very poor state when I got it, completely seized. Had about 100 electronic faults, wouldn't run at all. It didn't take too long to get it up and running, and everything except for one thing works. So the punch works. So essentially it's a Teletype with a punch and a tape reader attached. So as you type, it creates a tape. You can run it from a serial port as a standard Teletype. I actually use it as the interface for my Altair 8800. So rather than a VDU, I use this as the main input and output device for it. I spent about a month when I got it using the analyzer to reverse engineer the firmware. So I've got a fairly good idea as to how the firmware operates, what it does and what each block of firmware does. But I'm left with one fault that I just cannot find a fix for, and that is when I try to use the tape reader. If I use single byte read mode, then it works. So it reads the tape and it prints out what's on the tape. Now, according to the manual, what should happen if I press the green button is it should continuously read the entire tape and print out the results, or send the results out through the serial port if that's enabled. So if I've got it in line mode, it should send the data out through the serial port. But all that happens is it steps on to the next sprocket hole and then stops. Now it is reading the character. I've shown that using the analyzer. So if I then stop the reader and press the single read button, it actually prints off both characters, the one that the continuous read mode read and also the single step mode, but it doesn't continuously read. Now I've found it very hard trying to find any information on this machine at all. I can't find schematics, I can't find a proper user manual, and I'm not sure exactly how the reader is supposed to work and if it is actually a fault or not, or if it's something that's meant to be driven through the serial port. I've tried all the standard Teletype commands to get it to respond. I can print a tape using the serial port. I can read from the keys through the serial port. I can print files using the serial port, and I can create files from the Teletype to a file through the serial port. But I just cannot get this tape reader to work. I've spent literally weeks stripping this thing down. There are no electronic faults that I can find, but having said that, I don't have a schematic, and it's fairly complicated the way the entire machine's laid out. It's obviously microprocessor driven, but the reader goes through the circuitry in the punch, and then that's connected through a series of ribbon cables to the main board, and it does seem to buffer the data coming from the reader through the serial chips. So I'm not sure if it's an internal fault, electronic fault, or some weird bug, or if it is a problem with the serial drive and it just needs serial information to drive it. If anyone has any information on this, I would appreciate if you could let me know anything that you do have. Anyone that's got schematics, that would be fantastic. Or if anyone's just ever seen the tape reader working, whether or not it was just a case of it never worked. But as I say, any information would be greatly appreciated.